There's a great guy. How many people know how to Google for a job? Oh, okay. How many people can Google for a job? Yes, I finally get to add some value. Okay, cool. This is really cool. Googling for jobs is wonderful. What you do is you write a search string like this. And you got to write this down, jobmachine.net. I'll tell you why in a second. You have to learn how to write search strings. Because what a search string in Google does, you can do this in Yahoo, forget about it. Just do it in Google. What a search string does is goes out and brings you back all the information the way you specified it. How many people know how to use Google? Okay. How many people know how to use Google to find a job? Okay, so if I told you that you'd find more jobs by Googling than doing anything else, would you spend $9? Anybody says no, you're gone. Just looking for an excuse. A good friend of mine, Shally Steckrell, he is the cyber sleuth for recruiters around the world. On his website, jobmachine.net, he sells a cheat sheet for recruiters to teach recruiters how to find you. Well, it doesn't take a whole lot of fiddling to figure out how you can use that for yourself. So I would suggest, the last thing you buy Friday night, before you go out for a beer, is you log on to his site, take a look at the cheat sheet, and get yourself a copy, because it'll save you weeks of work trying to figure this out yourself. And you will find tens of thousands of jobs. All right, cold calling. How many people cold call employers? How many people cold call employers effectively and get job offers? Anybody know what good? Anybody know what a recruiter? I was looking at the book. It's not enough yet. You've already got it. Good man. So this is what recruiters do all day long. So you can is it up? Yeah. If you go to the site gmforjh.com, you can download 3 free chapters of the book. You want to do this because it does 2 things. It tells you how to set up your LinkedIn account. Take you right through it. More importantly, it tells you how to network like a recruiter. So let me segue into this. Should I segue into this story?
Sure.
Okay. Recruiters make their living by phoning up people they don't know to sell them other people that they don't yet know that they need. Is that correct, guys?
It's like a stockbroker.
Right? That's the black magic of it all. So I've got a buddy of mine who calls me about, about 6 weeks ago now. A friend of his threw his name in the hat for a CEO job. And he was excited because he's 50 some odd years old. We'll call him Bob. He's 50 some odd years old, and this is his dream job. I mean, it's not kind of his dream job. This is Bob. This is who he is as a person. He wants this job. But his name's been thrown into the hat with about 5 other guys here and about 50 guys across the rest of Canada. And they're going to bring them all down, or bring some of them down after they do a telephone screening interview, to Nevada, to this conference that they're holding to do interviews with the board. So he phones me and he says, how do I get to the front of the line? And I said, are you serious? He says, yeah. Tomorrow morning, my house. It's my birthday that day, so you got to admit this guy's important for me to skip my birthday to do this. So he comes in, we do this thing. I said, listen, here's what you're going to do. I'm going to show you how to use Zoom Info. I'm going to show you how to use Google. What you're going to do, this is extreme networking, is you're going to go onto Zoom Info. We're going to find out who's on the board of that organization, and we're going to find somebody in Canada. And then you're going to pick up the phone, and in the book it tells you what questions to ask. You're going to pick up the phone and say, hi, my name is Bob. I know we don't know each other, but I found your name on Zoom Info, or it could be Google. And I'm thinking about applying for this job that's coming up at X. And I know you're on the board. Would you mind if I asked you a couple of questions? I know this is kind of unusual, but would you mind if I asked you a couple of questions? He says, can I really do that? I said, Bob, would I lie to you? Well, seriously, Bob, would I lie to you? So the next day he calls me all excited. He goes home, and here's a guy that actually does what I suggested he do. Blew me away, I gotta tell you. Just floored me. And he goes, I did it. I said, you did what? You used Zoom Info? He says, yeah, I used Zoom Info. I found this guy. I called him up, told him who I was, where I found him, and what I wanted. I said, and? I said, well, he answered my questions. Well, that's great. He says, no, David. It turns out he's on the selection committee. Because he says, are you the same Bob? Yeah. Did I have his resume, your resume? And I go, well, he said, well, I really don't know. I said, well, it says this. Yeah, that's me. He says, how did you know this? I said, well, I'm on the selection committee. Well, wow. He said, listen, I wrote the business plan for the entree of the business into Canada. Would you like a copy? Bob says, well, would that be okay? Well, yes. So he emails him a copy of the thing. This guy's on the selection board. So he goes down, so he goes off to Nevada in a couple of weeks, but he comes to me on the following Monday, and he says, well, that's great. I'm at the front of the line now. I've done the first interview, went really well. They're bringing me down to Nevada. Now what? I said, well, Bob, how much do you want this job? He says, I want it, I want it, I want it. I said, then you're not going to get it. You're absolutely not going to get it. If you want it and you'll do anything to get it, you're not going to get it because they're going to sense it. He looks at me with that strange Irish look and says, David, I don't understand. I said, no, you don't understand. I'm going to explain it. You need to go down like any other businessman with $100 million to invest. And I said, okay, Bob, maybe you're not worth $100 million. I said, but your career is worth at least $1 million. If you're going to place $1 million with somebody, wouldn't you ask them a bunch of questions? Yeah, great. So here are the questions that you're going to ask them. So we dictate the questions. I don't hear from him for 2 weeks. I get this call. He goes, I just landed. I said, okay, from where? I said, from Nevada. I did the interview. And he says, I got the job. I said, what do you mean you got the job? I said, listen, this is what happened. I walked into the place. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. They asked me 3 questions, and I finally said, hey, you know what? That's a great question. In fact, it's a beautiful segue into a bunch of questions I got to ask you. In fact, do you mind if I just show you something I've prepared? He plugs his laptop into the camera, which shoots a thing on the screen, and he takes them through a 45-minute presentation. And I said, so how'd that go? And he goes, well, I went out in the hall, and they were sort of talking for about 40 minutes, and then the HR guy comes out and says, listen, the president wants you to sit at his table tonight. Would that be okay? Yeah, sure, because it's a big banquet. He says, well, you think you can put in a good word for me? Yeah, sure. That's when he knew he had it. Did he get the offer? Yes. What's the end of this? Well, after going back and forth for 2 weeks, because the offer obviously wasn't good enough, we couldn't let them land. Who fishes for a living? Who fishes? Who fishes? Anybody fish? Come on, there's got to be a fisherman in the room somewhere.
Isn't the answer everyone?
Everyone, yeah. Well, nobody would fish if the fish jumped into the boat. There's no fun in that. There's no sport in that. You got to make them feel like they worked for it, that they, as an employer, got a deal. So we dragged them through 7 days of negotiations. He's got a 50% pay raise. He's got perks that you would die for, an expense account, secretary card, blah, 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 blah. Why? Because he learned how to network correctly. If you go to the book, they will show you. They'll take you through all the steps that you pick up the phone, you find an employer, take your top 10 employers. You Google the top 10 employers. You find the guy that can hire you. You find a paper that he's written. You find employees that are ex-employees of this organization. You pick up the phone and you say, hi, my name is David Perry, and I'm considering doing work for, let's pick somebody that's not going to get me in trouble this week, Cognos. But before I go into this department, I want to know what this manager so-and-so is like. You know, I know you used to work there. Could you answer a couple questions for me? They're either going to say yes or no. If they say no, you can choose to say, thank you very much, and go on to the next person on your list that you've Googled. Or you can say, well, you know, I know this is kind of unusual, but I'm really looking for a job, and they look really interesting, but I'm not quite sure, and I know you used to work there. And ask them again. When you ask the second time, 99 times out of 100, they're going to answer your questions. And so all of a sudden, what do you have? You have the inside, well, you have permission. You have the inside skinny. You know all the dirt. You know where the problems are. So when you call this guy John up, you can say, and this is all scripted in the book, hi, John, my name is, and I was talking to Bob and Susie, who you talked to, and they think that, you know, my skills in boom, boom, boom might be of interest to your department. Are you a headhunter? No. Do you want to have a coffee? The guy will say yes or no. I mean, there's a whole script you go through. This is how headhunters do it. Did I get in trouble when I reverse engineered this and put it in the book? Well, it's just I wasn't popular. But this is how we do these things. Kevin?
And the good news, there's even more to this. Extreme networking was how Bob got to the interview. And you've probably never been told to do it exactly the way David just told you, correct? But you've all been told to research the company before your interview, correct? Raise your hands if you've been told that. You know that. All right, keep your hands up if you've all been told to research the company. How many of you ever gone into the job interview as if it was your first day on the job? Okay, you're smart and you're in the minority, the distinct minority. What Bob did was he took the research and took it a step further, and he actually took over the job interview. He plugged his computer in and said, "Do you mind if I kind of just get up here?" And, you know, he took it over. Because he approached that interview as if it were his first day on the job. He said, "Do you mind if I show you this business plan I came up with? So you could do this no matter what you're interviewing for." I call this concept starting work before the interview. I've proven it myself accidentally when I used to work for other people. You can Google start work before the interview in my name. I've written about this for about 6 years. But basically, it's not a job interview. Treat it as your first day on the job. Go in there and demonstrate your skills. If you're in sales, deliver sales leads. If you're in strategy, deliver a plan. Right? If you approach the interview not as a job interview, but your first day at work, how would you do it? You completely take it over. What I used to do, I did this accidentally, I bumbled onto it. I was, in another life, I was an editor, assistant editor at a publishing company. I was interviewing for a position to proofread magazines. This is back in the 90s when they used to not have websites. So I called the company and said, "Could I see some back issues?" They couriered them over to my house. So I'm doing research here, right? But I took it a step further. I was being hired to what? Proofread. So what did I do? What did I find?
Mistakes.
Typos. I found typos in each issue. I put Post-it notes on the typos, took the magazines with me to the interview. Do you see where this is headed? So I, like the cat that ate the mouse or the canary, I'm sitting there. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? And, tell me about yourself in that. But I know where I'm going because I have my own agenda. So at a certain point, when it was an opportune moment, I opened my magazines and casually slid them across the desk. I said, "If you hire me, I can keep this from happening to you again." And job offer. On the spot. So what Bob did, what I did, anybody can do this. Accounting, I don't care. I've got stories that'll talk your ear off, but we're in danger of doing that now. But it's not your first day on the job. It's your first day on the job. Don't go to the job interview as if you're interviewing. Go there ready to work.
And Bob reluctantly signed his offer yesterday, by the way.
So this is kind of a...
What's that?
Is he hired?
I don't know. I'll ask him.
You might be.
Good question.
This is a quick recap of what David just told you. And again, this is in Chapter 9 of his book, and you can get that free download. But find people who worked there before, Google them and the word resume, and a lot of resumes will pop up. Google the company name and resume, and call them on the information to find out. And David's script is important. At the very end, it's got a kind of a... Ever watched Columbo, that old TV show on TV? Peter Falk is the bumbling guy with the wrinkly trench coat. No one takes him seriously. One last question. And it's always the killer question because no one is threatened by this guy. So if your last question, your last statement is, "I know this is kind of an unusual way to do a job search. I'm sorry to trouble you." I think Columbo here, the psychology is critical because you're being a very non-threatening person, and they will open up to you if you call them and follow that script that David has given you. And here is what to say. Again, you won't be able to copy all these words down. We don't ask you to, but the important thing is to have a script ahead of time and to practice it so that it reads normally and then you can say it smoothly over the phone. And the last important question, really, is if I decide to talk with them, may I say that I spoke with you? Because you're turning that contact into a leverage point to get into that company. And as long as they left on good terms, you can do one of two things. You can drop that person's name when talking to the next person you contact at the company, and then all of a sudden you've got two names. Or what can happen is if that guy left when talking to the next person you contact at the company, and then all of a sudden you've got two names. Or what can happen is if that guy left on good terms and he's impressed by you, he's going to hang up the phone with you, call his old boss. I still keep in touch with my old boss. And he's going to say, "You know what? You'll never guess what happened. This guy just called me with the weirdest thing. He was researching the company and he found me on Google. And you'll probably be getting his name. You should watch out for David Smith. He's a smart guy, sharp guy. Watch out for him."